I'm Cheryl Munson, a member of the Monroe County Council, serving at large, and my pronouns are she and her.
I'm Julie Thomas. I am a member of the board of Monroe County Commissioners, and she, her, hers.
I think I've always been involved in Monroe County, some aspect of working with the public, and I most of all became interested in children in schools, so did a lot with the PTO, and at that time the PTO Council, and then gradually saw that the important decisions made about community services were those made by local government. So I became involved in township government, where I served on the township board in Indian Creek for 16 years. and I knew from that important decisions were made at the county level. So I decided to expand on my service on various Monroe County boards and commissions to run for office, and I chose the county council.
Yeah, and like Cheryl, I was also a volunteer in the community in a number of organizations and saw a lot of things that were going on and was frustrated by some things that were going on. But the Democratic Women's Caucus was starting, and I was asked by somebody, hey, would you like to help out? And I said, sure. And so I was sort of on the ground floor of that group. And that's a political caucus to help recruit, inspire, support, train women to run for office. And within about the first couple of meetings, they kept saying, you know, ask somebody to run, and anybody can run. And I thought, you know, it always seems so mystifying that somebody was in an office and was doing this great work, and how did they ever, there is no school to go to, there is no amount of training.
There's no textbook.
Just getting into it.
Right.
Yeah, just get into it. But I think volunteering was a huge start.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of overlap, though. Really, if you think about it, there's a lot of overlap. But
so the real difference is if somebody writes to me to complain about something, I say, oh, you'll have to take that to the commissioners, because that's no, I'm joking. The commissioners are the executive and legislative body of county government. And that's different than a mayor is for a city. The mayor is the executive only, and the city council is the legislative and fiscal body. For county government, the county council is solely the fiscal body. We don't do really much legislation. We do pass ordinances, but they usually have to do with fiscal matters. And people might think this is limiting, but really it is not, because everything involves money. So we know all aspects of county government, and of course we have to work in partnership with the commissioners.
Absolutely, that collaboration is vital. That's you know, as much as we work with the elected department heads and the appointed department heads, that relationship is so important, and I'm just grateful that we have such a good one, really, because it makes all the difference in the world. To have a project and have an idea of something we want to do for county residents, and to be able to work with the council on a regular basis and say, this is what our dream is, can we make this happen, how could we do this? And working collaboratively, we get great ideas and move forward.
Thank you.
It's not an accomplishment that I have, but I would say I am so proud of the fact that we have the first all-female Board of Commissioners in Indiana. That, not my doing, except for my third of it, but that's huge to me. I think that sends a signal to the women and girls in our community that this is a job for any of you. I think that's an important thing. Just given the year 2021, I would say getting us through COVID is something I'm really proud of, and it's something that took all of us working together across the community, but across county government, to really protect people. We had no information. We had to make some tough decisions. But I would also say I'm proud of the way that the county's been resilient economically. I'm proud, and I don't take credit for that. I'm just proud of that fact. I think one of my favorite projects, if maybe that would help, is really focusing on energy savings and getting some solar panels installed at various buildings around the county. That's a benefit to our future generations that are living here. It's a benefit to the present, and it also helps save a few dollars, or more than a few dollars, on our energy costs. So that's something I'm proud of.
So my list includes 2 top items. First, increasing the special income tax for juvenile services. We have a Youth Services Bureau that is an important place in our community, because we're not sending troubled youth to detention. We're taking care of them here and getting them help and their families help and getting them back together. It's just so important that we have this. Secondly, we passed another income tax for public safety. And of course, nobody wants to see their taxes raised. Any increase in tax is controversial. There's always people opposed. But this tax enabled us to provide additional funding for our jail, which definitely needed help, and mostly to provide additional deputies for Monroe County, so that there could be 1 deputy on duty for each quadrant of the county, 24/7.
I would say, Cheryl, that you should think about talking about the Sofia Travis Fund, because you've worked on that. That's an accomplishment.
That's an accomplishment, and it's one I take my heart to. Sofia Travis was a former county council member, and she was going to run again in 2012 when she tragically died, an unexpected early death.
Young woman.
Yes, with a small child. And she was a friend of mine. She was a friend of Julie's. It was just terribly hard. And I was asked to run in Sofia's place and fill her slot on the ballot. So that was always a wrap around my shoulders to keep me tuned into things that I knew were important to her. And one of the things that she did when she was serving on the council was to create a community services grant program. Didn't have much funding, but it provided funds to various not-for-profits serving the residents of Monroe County in many different ways. And so after I was elected and joined the council, council members voted to rename the program in Sofia's honor. And so every year we honor her with the work that we do, reviewing grant applications.
Regularly and efficiently. I think, and I think the pandemic really broadened the scope for us. So we were having regular meetings, not just with our departments, health, emergency management, council members, but we were meeting with IU and the city and the IU Health Bloomington Hospital. That partnership has just blossomed in really important ways. We work with the township trustees, which I don't think that happened as much before, but with the fire protection district. But also we utilize, thanks to the help of the council, we utilize some of our food and beverage money that we were collecting for the convention center. We actually utilize that to help businesses. And we also used some of that money in the CARES funding to help township trustees provide funding for residents who are struggling to pay bills because of the economic downturn as a result of COVID. And so between the fire district and that, our relationship grew stronger. And also, I think through the process of annexation, we've worked a lot with the township trustees when those events come up, and that's also made that relationship stronger. But probably our closest colleagues are the council, every department head that's elected, which is a lot in Monroe County. That's not typical in the city, of course. But we also work with our state representatives and legislators, and I rely a lot on past elected officials for advice, which has been really helpful for me as well. And then, and of course, everyone in the community that's involved. It's really, it's been amazing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I would like to say that things have changed during the pandemic, and I'm so grateful to Zoom because I can be in more meetings every day and every week. It has made communication stronger, and good communication improves everything. So council members work regularly with department heads, elected and appointed, and of course with the commissioners. But we do this not just from the standpoint of finances. We are involved with how things are going in their department and what their needs are, what might be a good idea for dealing with such and such issue. So one challenge is if you want to serve the public, you have to get elected. That's the price you pay for being a public servant. And I always consider it a challenge to spend time writing speeches, going to forums, doing this and that. And so I consider that a major challenge. But there's a really, really good part of it that I missed out on in 2020. And that is talking to the residents of the county.
Yes. For me, I think the biggest challenge comes when I'm in a position where I have to cast a vote on something, and I'm hearing two very articulate, well thought out, reasoned arguments on either side. Mm-hmm. And I have to make a decision. And I appreciate both arguments, and there's no middle road, and what do we do? There's always somebody that's unhappy. And that is probably, I just kept thinking, well, you can compromise, you can work your way. There's not that opportunity in many cases. And so I think that was the biggest lesson for me when I first ran for office. And for me, it's also remains the biggest challenge. I want people to understand that they're being heard, even if I don't vote the way they want me to vote.
I would say the budget requires the most time because it's reviewing a lot of information, and it's intense work for a couple weeks during the budget hearings. And but as I said, we deal with budget matters year round. Thank heavens it's spread out a little. If we had to do all the grant things at the same time we do general fund budgets, we would be in big trouble. And I think that is one of the most intense times. The other, if I consider it accumulatively, it is dealing with correspondence and reading all the things that are sent to me that I need to read.
Yeah, and I would agree. Correspondence is a big part of my time, and even just having those quick phone calls with other department heads and other members of government or people in the community takes a lot of time. I think it depends on the day, and some days it is research and reading packets, and some days it's I could spend 6-7 hours of a day just in meetings, like actually in meetings, which is hard to fathom, but it happens. But then you also have to get things done between the meetings, right? You're not just doing things in the meeting, you're talking about what you will do. So So it depends on the day. It really does. I wish there were more events, and I wish there were more face-to-face time with people, but with the pandemic, it's difficult, of course. But even before the pandemic, I would have said that would have been my wish, to be able to actually just sit down with various constituencies and just have a natter and see what's going on with them, you know, what's important to them, without saying, here's the proposal, what do you think? What would you like your county government to look like, and what would you like your county to look like?
I think people who know about the county council think we are the commissioners.
They think you're the city council, I think, right? Because the city council does legislative, and so
yes,
I think,
and they wonder why we don't pass ordinances for this or that. A number of people would like me to vote against a mask mandate, and that's easy to reply to because we don't vote on mask mandates. But very few people understand the structure of county and city government, and for that matter, state and national government.
The other thing that people don't get is that if they live in the city, they still are county residents. I think that's part of the thing that's missing too. If you live in the town of Ellisville, you are also a Monroe County resident. If you live in Steinsville, you are also a Monroe County resident. I think people don't think that our work ends at the borders of whatever. It really doesn't. It encompasses everybody.
Well, they think there is a dichotomy. Well, it's actually a trichotomy. Bloomington, Ellettsville, county.
Wow.
Absolutely. Well, let's see. We provide funding for the services of the entire criminal justice system and for many of the services that people benefit from. For example, the health department. And I think if they only thought about that, they would say, wow, that's great. But we have county roads and bridges. We have weights and measures, which make sure that when people go get a gallon of gas, they are actually getting a gallon of gas. Building inspections.
Building inspections, huge, yeah.
But for all our other departments, it's just really important. We have the airport. What else, Julie? Let's just start naming them.
Auditor Treasurer.
Yeah, Auditor Treasurer, Recorder that handles property records.
Right, like when you're getting a mortgage, buying, selling property.
We have the assessor.
Yes.
The assessor
Important.
determines the value of your property, and that is a basis for property taxes.
Yeah.
Which are different from income taxes, but.
And to think about things like from parks, right? Parks are services that everybody hopefully enjoys, trails, roads and bridges, as you mentioned. You know, I always like to talk about it, the smallest department is weights and measures, and that's exactly that, making sure that an ounce is an ounce on a scale at a supermarket or a farmer's market. All the way to the criminal justice side, which is the jail and the judges and the clerk and the elections. The only thing that the county is not responsible for is the city police or the town police or marshals.
In city fire.
City fire is separate, yeah. So it's a huge piece of our budget, huge, besides the building, the people, the personnel, probation, community corrections, Youth Service Bureau, all parts of it. There's a lot there. And then the sheriff, of course, we work with him all the time. So there's a lot. And I think people don't realize the scope. And we're unusual in Indiana because only a few counties have a unified court system. So in most counties, you would find a separate municipal court system from a county court system. And so we're atypical. We're not the only one, but it's not the norm.